It all started with a wedding ring. Hers, to be exact. I found it sitting in her car's cup holder, not tucked away in a glove box, not in a jewelry pouch, just resting there in plain sight like it didn't mean a damn thing. A small gold band. That's all it was. But that little circle opened everything up. The distance, the late nights, the hollow smiles, the silence, the lies, and eventually, the betrayal. For me, that ring wasn't just a forgotten piece of jewelry. It was a signal flare. A quiet explosion. A knife to the chest. Everything Laura and I had built over 25 years, gone. Not slowly, not painfully, not in pieces. It disappeared the moment I saw that ring sitting there under the sunlight, looking smaller than I remembered, colder too. And what did I do about it? I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I watched. I listened. And then I vanished. This isn't a story about heartbreak. This is a story about clarity. About what happens when a man stops chasing what's already lost and starts reclaiming what's his, not just his dignity, but his direction. 3 years later, when Laura saw the photo from our son's wedding, the suit, the smile, the woman standing beside me, that's when she finally understood what it cost. But let's not skip ahead. Let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Mark. My wife's name is Laura. I'm 45. She's 43. We've been together for over half our lives. I was 20 when we met, just some kid working part-time at a hardware store, still trying to figure out what kind of man I wanted to be. She was 18, helping her dad with bookkeeping at his auto shop. There were no sparks flying, no dramatic first kiss. Just quiet smiles, slow conversations over coffee, and before long we were inseparable. We got married 2 years later. Small-town ceremony. Nothing extravagant, just folding chairs, family, friends, and a whole lot of hope. We moved into a modest house not far from her parents, and we never left it. That place saw every chapter of our life. The early years, the stretch of debt and saving, the nights with a colicky baby, the arguments, the makeups, the holidays, the routines. We built it brick by brick, literally and emotionally. Our son Josh is 19 now. Smart, focused. He's away at college a few hours from home, studying mechanical engineering. Has his own apartment, his own bills. He's doing well. Makes me proud just talking about him. I thought maybe, with the house quiet again, Laura and I would finally have time to rediscover each other. Time for slow mornings and easy dinners. Time to be something more than just parents. Turns out, I was wrong. Dead wrong. That Saturday started like any other. Cool air, sun still low, grass still holding onto the morning dew. I was on my second cup of coffee and getting ready to mow the lawn before the heat settled in. That's when I noticed her car was parked too close to the shed again, blocking the mower, like always. I'd asked her 100 times not to park there, but that morning, I didn't feel like starting an argument. I just grabbed her keys off the hook and climbed into the driver's seat to back it up a few feet. Her car smelled like it always did, faint lavender, her perfume, and the lingering scent of fast food she always promised she'd clean out but never did. But it wasn't the smell that got me. It was the ring. Just sitting there. No note. No explanation. Just metal on plastic, gleaming in the light pouring through the windshield. Now, maybe that doesn't sound like a big deal to you. Maybe you're thinking, she took it off to clean. It slipped off. Maybe it's nothing. But let me tell you something about my wife. She doesn't forget that ring. She never has. She wears it like it's part of her hand. She twists it when she's anxious or uncomfortable. I've seen her take it off exactly twice in 25 years, once to get it resized after she lost some weight, and once because of a rash from a bad lotion. Both times, she told me about it first, showed me where she left it, never just left it lying around. But this time, nothing. No heads up. No reason. No conversation. I'm not a paranoid man. I'm not the type to jump to conclusions. But my gut has never lied to me. It's the same instinct that told me to buy snow chains the night before a blizzard in '09. The same feeling that told me Josh wasn't telling the truth about where he went after prom. And now, it was whispering again. Something's not right. I sat there for a minute, staring at that ring, watching how the sunlight danced across it, thinking about the quiet house behind me, where my wife was probably still asleep in the bed we'd shared for decades. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't know who I was coming back into bed with anymore. It wasn't just the ring. Looking back, the signs had been there for weeks, maybe longer. You know how people say you can feel it before you can prove it? They're right. It wasn't one thing. It was a dozen little ones, each so small they could be explained away on their own. But together, they whispered something I didn't want to hear. Her smile had changed. It used to be full, slow, unforced. Lately, it felt painted on, polished for show. She used to lean against me when we watched TV, resting her head on my shoulder. Lately, she sat at the far end of the couch, arms folded across her chest like a wall between us. The house didn't feel cold, but she acted like it was. Her phone never left her hand. Not at dinner, not when she went to bed, not even when she stepped into the bathroom. That thing was glued to her. She used to leave it on the counter when she cooked, forget where she put it for hours. Now she kept it face down, tilted just enough that I couldn't see a thing. And then there was the gym. At first, I was happy she'd started going again. Said it helped her think. That she needed the clarity. I told her I supported her, and I meant it. At our age, keeping yourself together isn't easy. I thought maybe it was her way of coping with the empty house. Maybe she was trying to feel good about herself again. But there was no gym bag in the trunk. No sweaty clothes in the laundry. No worn-out sneakers kicked off at the door. No signs of sore muscles or tired legs. No, boy, that class was killer today. Just nothing. If anything, she looked fresher when she came home than when she left. Hair perfect. Makeup untouched. The lies didn't hit me all at once. They crept in. Quietly. Like water under the floorboards. But that ring, that was the first crack in the wall. I didn't say anything that day. I just picked it up, turned it over in my hand. I remembered the engraving inside, always yours. I remembered how she cried when we picked it out. How she said she'd never take it off. How she twisted it with her fingers when she was nervous or shy or uncertain. I placed it right back where I found it. Didn't move anything else. I backed her car out of the way, mowed the lawn, and went about the day like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. The next morning, I waited. I didn't plan it, but when I walked into the kitchen and saw her there, hair clipped back, robe cinched around her waist, pouring herself a cup of that awful herbal tea she liked, I knew this was the moment. She was half awake, steam rising around her face. Chamomile, maybe. Or lavender. It always smelled like potpourri and wet leaves. I leaned on the counter and kept my voice light. Hey, I said. Quick question. Why was your ring in the car yesterday? She froze. Half a second. That's all it took. Most people wouldn't notice. But I did. Her hand hesitated as it reached for her mug. Her eyes flickered just once. And then came the smile. Too wide. Too fast. Too rehearsed. Oh, that, she said, laughing like I just asked why she left the porch light on. I must have taken it off at the gym. You know how I hated getting scratched on the machines. She sipped her tea, like that explanation should close the book. Like it was a broken lamp, and she hoped I wouldn't ask again. I didn't push. Just nodded slowly and said, huh. But inside, something tightened. The gym. She hadn't been to the gym in weeks. And even if she had, she'd never, not once in our entire marriage, just left her ring loose in the car. Not like that. And that's when I knew she was lying to my face. Back when she used to go regularly, it was a women-only gym over on Oak Ridge. She kept the key fob in her cup holder, the same one I had just looked into the day before. It wasn't there anymore. Hadn't been for a while. I figured maybe she switched gyms. Maybe she lost it. But now, that small absence took on new weight. Later that morning, while she was in the shower, I grabbed my keys and drove out to Oak Ridge. Nothing dramatic. I just wanted to ask. There was a girl at the counter, couldn't have been more than 19, pink nails, and a bubblegum smile. Her name tag said, Haley. Hey, I said, friendly as could be. I was just wondering, my wife used to come here. Laura Anderson. Did she happen to leave her key fob? Maybe dropped it recently. Haley tapped a few keys, glanced up. She hasn't checked in since. Mid-June, she said, all cheerful and helpful. It was August. I smiled, thanked her, turned back to my truck and slid behind the wheel with hands shoved deep in my pockets. Mid-June. That meant it had been 6, maybe 7 weeks since she'd even set foot in that building. And yet just this morning, she told me she'd taken her ring off to avoid scratching it on the gym equipment. A small lie. But once you catch one, you start looking for others. And the more I looked, the more I saw. That afternoon, the ring was back on her hand. Like nothing happened. She didn't mention it. Didn't ask if I'd seen it. Didn't thank me for putting it back. Just pretended everything was the same. But I knew better now. That lie, so quick, so clean, so practiced, it wasn't a slip. It was a script. And honest people don't need scripts. That night, we watched something on Netflix. She laughed at a line, reached for the popcorn bowl between us. Her hand brushed mine. I didn't flinch, but I didn't feel anything either. She went to bed early, said she had a busy week ahead, kissed my cheek like always, said good night like nothing had changed. I said it back. then sat in the dark living room for another hour, staring at the black TV screen as the old house creaked and settled around me. Sometimes, silence says more than words ever could. I couldn't sleep that night. Not because of rage. I wasn't there yet. Not even grief. What I felt was focus. Like something inside had clicked into place. A kind of alert stillness. You don't expect that sort of thing from a man like me. I'm not a detective. I sell tools, build shelves, fix porch railings. But in that moment, I felt like I was drawing up blueprints for something bigger than wood and nails. I needed answers. Not guesses. Not gut feelings. Answers. And I knew just who to call. Dave and I go way back. 30 years. High school buddies. He was 2 grades ahead, drove a rusted-out Dodge, and always had a camel between his teeth like some kind of outlaw philosopher. After graduation, he went into the Marines. Came back quieter, tougher, smarter. Built a life out of hardware, surveillance tech, and no-nonsense logic. He was the kind of guy who knew how to fix more than just broken things. He also knew how to find truth. When he picked up the phone, I didn't waste time. "I think Laura's hiding something," I said flatly. "And I need to know for sure." There was a pause. A quiet breath on the other end. Then, "All right," he said, calm as a still lake. "Let's get to work." That evening, Dave pulled into my driveway in his old F-150, toolbox in the bed, thermos in the cup holder. He didn't say much at first. Just opened the passenger door and handed me a small gray case, about the size of a lunchbox. Inside was a GPS tracker. Matte black, about as big as a pack of cards, with a magnetic side. "This one's simple," Dave said. "Battery lasts 10 days. Updates every 15 minutes. All you gotta do is open the app and follow the ping. Nothing more." I held it in my palm. It felt heavier than it should. Not in weight, in meaning. Like holding something I'd never wanted to need. Like opening a door I wasn't sure I'd ever be able to close. Dave must have seen it on my face, because he clapped a hand on my shoulder. "You're not hurting her with this," he said. "You're just taking back clarity. That's all this is, a mirror." We waited until dark. Laura said she had an early meeting the next morning. She went to bed before 10, like usual lately. Same kiss on the cheek. Same robe. Same routine. She had no idea I was already halfway out the door, just not physically yet. Once the lights were out, Dave and I slipped into the garage. He handed me the flashlight. We got down on the concrete, slid under her car, and in less than 2 minutes, the tracker was in place, snug under the rear bumper, blinking blue. Dave handed me the phone with the app installed. A little dot blinked quietly on the screen. "Give it a test tomorrow," he said. "She says she's going to work. Let's see if that's true." He didn't ask questions. Didn't moralize. That's the kind of friend he is. He just gave me the tools and trusted me to build whatever came next. The next morning, I acted like nothing was different. Coffee. Weather. Talk about groceries. But Laura? She was moving with more energy than usual. She curled her hair. Checked her lipstick in the hallway mirror twice. Wore those tall brown boots I'd bought her last Christmas. The skirt was one I hadn't seen in months. She looked good. Sharp. Like she had someone to impress. I stood at the sink rinsing my mug while she packed her bag. "Big day ahead?" I asked, casual as ever. She smiled, that same too fast, too wide smile. "Yeah, back-to-back meetings. Might be late, so don't wait up." "All right," I said. "Take your time." She kissed my cheek and walked out the door. A minute later, her car started, and I opened the app. The little blue dot started moving down our street, turned onto Elm, and headed toward downtown. At first, I let myself think maybe I'd been wrong. Maybe she was just going to work. But then the dot veered off, past the street where her office was. Took a right where it should have gone left. It paused briefly in a gas station parking lot, then kept going. I zoomed in. The dot didn't stop until it reached a little strip mall at the edge of town. No offices there. No client buildings. No fitness studios. Just a rundown row of shuttered shops across from an old storage facility. And there it stayed. No motion for almost an hour. I sat at the kitchen table, phone in hand, watching that dot blink like a second heartbeat. Quiet, steady, undeniable. Later that day, she came home humming. Said her meetings ran long. That traffic was awful. That her head hurt. I asked if she needed anything. She said no, just a bath and some quiet. I nodded. I knew she was lying. And the strangest part was, I wasn't even angry. Not yet. I was clear. Like standing on a ladder that suddenly shifts, but instead of panicking, you just freeze. Lock everything down. Focus on balance. That's what this was. A shift. A narrowing of vision. Dave came by the next night. We sat in the garage, going over the app together. Saved a few key locations. Marked timestamps. We'll track her for a bit, he said. Build a pattern. That way, when it's time, you've got facts, not hunches. And that's exactly what we did. I didn't tail her around town. I didn't follow in my truck or show up where she was. That wasn't the plan. The plan was quiet. Strategic. Let her say where she was going, then check the map. Not once did the two match. Not once. And each time I opened that app and saw that little blinking dot somewhere it wasn't supposed to be, something inside me settled a little deeper. Not in despair. In certainty. Laura had her story. Now I had mine. And mine was starting to sound more like the truth. That morning felt different. Laura was in a rush, too much of a rush for someone who usually lingered over her tea and tapped through her emails. She skipped breakfast. Didn't mention her schedule. Just grabbed her purse, phone already in her hand, thumbs moving like she was texting someone before the door had even opened. Big meeting, she mumbled, half turning toward me as she slipped on her heels. I'll call you later. Take your time, I said, not looking up from my coffee. Maybe she didn't hear the weight in my voice. Or maybe she did, and ignored it. The front door slammed. The engine turned over. Then she was gone. I waited. 5 minutes later, I was in Dave's truck, passenger seat, baseball cap low over my brow. He was already parked across the street, sipping black coffee from a dented thermos. You ready? He asked, eyes on the app. Let's do it. We didn't follow her immediately. That'd be reckless. We gave it time. Watch her little blue dot move across the map. Just like before, she didn't head to her office. Instead, she took the on-ramp to the freeway, going northbound this time. We waited another 3 minutes, then Dave eased the truck into gear and rolled out. The roads were quiet, mostly. It was still early. We passed familiar landmarks, old gas stations, fields we used to watch fireworks from on summer nights. Every mile pulled us further from home and deeper into something we couldn't unsee once we crossed the line. Then her dot stopped. Exit 112. A red-roofed roadside motel we both knew by reputation more than by experience. Sat between a tire shop and a rundown diner. Hadn't been updated in 20 years, faded paint, buzzing neon sign with half the letters out. Her car was already parked in back, next to a dark pickup with tinted windows. Dave didn't say anything. Just pulled into the diner lot across the street and backed us into a spot with a clear view of the motel. His camera sat in his lap, cap still on the lens. And we waited. The hour passed slow. No conversation. Just the quiet hum of the engine, the occasional clink of ice and a bottle of water. I stared at her car. At the pickup. At the curtains pulled tight over room 6. Every few minutes, Dave would glance in the rear view. Then back to the screen. Then at me. No one said it, but we were both waiting for the door to open. And then it did. Laura stepped out first. Her hair was brushed back. Her blouse was tucked in like she'd straightened it in the mirror. Casual, but too polished. She moved with that lightness I hadn't seen in years, the way people do when nothing's weighing them down. Then he came out. Tall. Early 40s. Khakis. Button-up shirt with the sleeves rolled. Looked like the kind of guy who spent weekends golfing and shaking hands over real estate deals. His hand went to her lower back like it had done it 100 times before. Not a guiding touch. Not casual. It was possessive. I felt it like a jolt in my ribs. She turned to him and laughed, something he said. Brushed an invisible speck off his shoulder. And then they kissed. Quick. Familiar. Like they'd done it in that parking lot 100 times before. My hand went for the door handle. But Dave's grip was already on my forearm. Let it play out, he said quietly. Don't lose control now. We're here for proof, not a scene. My jaw locked. My fists clenched. I stared at the sidewalk like it had just betrayed me too. Dave raised the camera. Steady hands. No hesitation. Click. 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 Each photo, one more nail in the coffin of whatever we used to be. Laura smiled up at him. He leaned against her car. They said something. Laughed again. Then, like it was choreographed, they got into separate cars. She left first. He waited a few minutes, then pulled out in the opposite direction. Dave caught his license plate. I didn't ask him to. He just knew. We didn't talk much on the drive back. Dave offered to stop for food. I wasn't hungry. My appetite had been gone since the moment I saw his hand on her back. When I got home, the house was still. Porch light blinking like always. Mail untouched in the box. I sat on the couch, phone in hand, watching her little dot creep back toward home. She pulled into the driveway an hour later. Came through the front door humming. Said traffic was terrible. That the client lunch ran long. She kicked off her shoes and laughed, tossing her bag on the chair like she'd just had a long but productive day. I smiled, said I'd ordered pizza. She kissed my cheek and headed down the hall to change. She had no idea, no clue that I'd already seen everything, that I'd watched the story take shape with my own eyes, that I had the photos not on my phone, not in some cloud, but printed, tucked into an envelope, ready, and that by the time she read what was in that envelope, I'd be gone. The next morning, I made some calls, took the day off work, told the office I needed to handle some family matters. That was true, just not the way they thought. I drove into town, to a law office tucked between a bank and a florist. The sign on the door said Landry and Associates. Inside, everything smelled like leather and fresh paper. Quiet, controlled, professional. Her name was Miss Landry. Mid-40s. Sharp. No nonsense. The kind of woman who looked at you once and already knew what kind of case you were bringing in. I handed her the envelope Dave and I had put together. She opened it without flinching, flipped through the photos slowly, one by one. I watched her eyes. No reaction. No judgment. Just calculation. This is enough, she said, closing the folder. You're protected, especially if we move smart from here. We went through the details. Accounts. Titles. Property. Pensions. Turned out I wasn't in as bad a spot as I'd feared. The house? Mostly in my name. Bought it with inheritance money from my parents. Mortgage nearly paid off. That gave me leverage. She told me to quietly open a new checking account at a separate bank, under a different email, different address. I moved half our liquid assets into it. Totally legal, since she didn't know what was coming. I also froze my credit. Pulled every account statement from the last 6 months. Changed passwords. Removed myself from a few joint bills. Not to hide. To prepare. Miss Landry said the key was clean lines. No mess. No drama. No begging. Just step out and let the dust settle where it falls. When I left her office, the sky looked the same clouds, same afternoon sun, but the air felt different. Like the weight I'd been dragging behind me for weeks had finally let go. That night, I didn't say a word to Laura. She said she was tired. I said I had some things to finish in the garage. We moved around each other like polite strangers. Shared the same kitchen, same hallway, same staircase, but we weren't in the same marriage anymore. Not really. Over the next 2 weeks, I started moving my life, one box at a time. Nothing suspicious. Nothing dramatic. Just slow, deliberate motion. A pair of boots. A duffel bag with some clothes. My tool set. A few books. The old hunting gear she always said made the closet smell like cabin dust. I rented a 1-bedroom apartment across town, above a quiet barber shop, paid in cash, month-to-month lease. No one knew me there. No history. Just clean walls and silence. Dave helped with the move. Never said a word about the photos. Didn't ask how I was doing. He just carried boxes, passed me a beer afterward, and sat on the porch while I labeled drawer contents and wrapped picture frames and towels. We installed a small safe in the closet of the new place. Just for documents. Passports. A little cash. Emergency things. You're gonna want clean exits, Dave said, wiping sweat off his neck. No ties. No explanations. He was right. Back at the house, I started erasing myself. Slowly. I cleared out drawers, then filled them with junk from the attic so nothing looked empty. Took photos off the bedroom wall and replaced them with old ones from our early years. Stuff she wouldn't notice was swapped. She didn't seem to notice. Or maybe she did, and just didn't care enough to ask. The lies came easier to her now. I could see it in the way her voice didn't crack. The way she didn't hesitate. Like she was reading from a script she'd practiced for months. And me? I played along. We had dinner. I asked about her day. She gave vague answers. I nodded, pretended to believe them. All the while, I was already halfway gone. And that, more than the motel, more than the man with the pressed shirt and the hand on her back, that was what stung most. Not the betrayal, but how easy it had become for her to look me in the eye and lie. Still, I wasn't going to give her the show. No dramatic confrontation. No raised voices. No, why? Shouted across the living room. That's not how I was built. I was going to leave the way I lived. Quiet. Measured. Controlled. It was a Thursday morning. She came barreling down the stairs, one shoe in her hand, purse swinging off her elbow. Her phone was already lit up. She didn't even glance at me. Big meeting, she said, keys jangling. I'll text you later. Take your time, I said, not even looking up from the newspaper. She didn't hear the difference in my voice. Or maybe she did. But by then, it didn't matter. The front door slammed. The engine turned over. And that was the last time she saw me in that house. I waited. Not long. Just enough for the silence to settle again. The house was empty now, and I could feel it in my bones, like pressure lifting off a cracked beam. There's a kind of stillness that only comes when a choice has already been made. No turning back. No more doubt. I rinsed out my coffee mug, set it in the sink, and walked down the hallway one last time. I didn't touch the walls. Didn't linger on the photos. I wasn't here to mourn the place. I'd already said goodbye to it, slowly, quietly, over the past 2 weeks, one drawer at a time. When I reached the bedroom, I opened the top drawer of my nightstand. Inside was the envelope. Thick. White. Unlabeled. Sealed. It felt heavier than it should have, not because of weight, but because of what it held, the final piece. The truth, written in photos, timelines, silence. On top of it, I placed my wedding ring. The same ring she used to touch absent-mindedly whenever she spoke to people she didn't trust. Next to it, I placed the photo Dave had taken outside the motel, just printed on standard paper. No frame. No embellishments. The man with his hand on her back. Her smile tilted up toward him like she was 17 again. And finally, I took a small slip of paper and wrote 5 words in my own handwriting. Don't look for me. I pulled the SIM card out of the burner phone I'd been using to track her. Set it beside the envelope. That card held every ping, every timestamp, every step I took toward this moment, but she'd never understand what it meant. Not really. It wasn't data. It was my unraveling. I stood in the room for one last breath, and then I walked out. I didn't take photos. Didn't lock the bedroom door. Didn't write a note with reasons or questions. The house would speak for itself, the spaces left behind, the echo of drawers that no longer stuck when you opened them. The absence of my boots by the door. In the kitchen, I placed the envelope on the counter. Neat. Still. Undeniable. The ring glinted on top of it in the light through the blinds. Then I stepped outside. No bags in my hands. No second thoughts in my chest. Just keys, my wallet, and the weight of freedom curling its fingers around my shoulders. I got into my truck and didn't look back. Didn't check the mirrors. Didn't pause at the end of the driveway. I'd already lived that scene in my head too many times. The tearful apologies, the angry confusion, the desperate questions. I wanted no part of it. What I wanted and what I'd earned was gone. I wasn't taking scraps. I drove across town, through streets I'd memorized by heart. The barber shop came into view. The quiet apartment above it. My new place. My real place. No shadows of someone else's guilt in the corners. No air that smelled like lavender and lies. I walked in, locked the door behind me, and powered down the phone. I didn't just turn it off. I removed the battery, dropped it in the kitchen drawer, deleted every synced account. No trail, no signal, no way back. Not out of cruelty, but out of self-respect. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't punishment. It was release. The house, the routine, the lies, I left it all behind like a coat I no longer needed. I didn't need an audience for my exit. No door slams. No shouting in the driveway. That was her world, the theater of pretense. Mine was quiet. Final. Clean. She'd come home to it all. The envelope, the ring, the note, the silence. And I'd already be gone. I didn't see what happened when she walked in. Didn't want to. But Dave did. He drove by about an hour after I left, just to be sure the truck wasn't still in the driveway and nothing had gone sideways. She pulled in fast, he told me later. Almost hit the curb. Left the car door open. Bolted inside like the house was on fire. He didn't stick around long. Just enough to catch her silhouette through the living room window pacing, phone in hand to her face, lights flickering on and off in every room. I think she thought you were still there, he said. Just hiding somewhere. But she wasn't going to find me. I left no trace. No voicemail. No digital fingerprint. Even at work, I'd gone in early that morning, shook my boss's hand, left a formal resignation letter on his desk. No hard feelings. No explanations. 11 years of service wrapped up in one quiet exit. He didn't ask questions. Maybe he saw something in my eyes that told him not to. Later that night, my phone, the one I'd given only to Josh, rang once. Then again. Then again. Laura, I assumed. Or maybe someone she sent. I didn't answer. I sat on the small sofa in my apartment, lights off, window cracked open to let in the noise of traffic and night air. And for the first time in what felt like months, I felt still. No lies behind me. No chasing closure. Just breath in my lungs and time that belonged to me again. 2 days passed. I didn't turn the phone back on. Didn't scroll through missed calls. I wasn't curious, not about her voice, or her reaction, or whatever excuses might have been spinning through her head like a storm she thought she could still control. But then the spare phone rang. The one I gave Josh months ago, just in case. I recognized the number immediately. I'd memorized it the first time I saw it on the hospital paperwork the day he was born. It had changed since then, of course, but the feeling hadn't. That number still hit differently. Still made me sit up straighter. I let it ring once. Twice. Then I picked up. "Dad," he said, voice tight. "What's going on?" I didn't speak right away. I'd imagined this moment 100 ways, but none of them felt quite like this. "Mom's losing it," he went on. "She called me 3 times in one night. Said you left. Said something about an envelope. I asked what happened and she just broke down." I took a breath. "Slow. Careful. Can we meet?" I asked. "Somewhere quiet. Just you and me." He didn't ask why. He just said, "Yeah, I'll drive." We met halfway, at a diner just off the highway. Neutral ground. He picked the booth in the back, away from the windows, already nursing a soda when I walked in. His hair was a little longer than the last time I saw him, dark under a backwards cap, shoulders tense. I slid into the booth across from him, set the folder on the table. He stared at it. Didn't reach for it right away, just looked at the manila paper like he already knew whatever was inside was going to change something. "She's been seeing someone else," I said, voice level. "For a while." He didn't move. Didn't speak. I pushed the folder an inch closer. "The photos are in there. The timeline. The places she told me she was, and where she actually went. I didn't want you to hear it secondhand. And I didn't want to lie to you." He opened it slowly. The first photo, Laura outside the motel, brushing her hair back, straightening her blouse. The second, the man's hand on her back. The third, their kiss, casual, practiced, familiar. Josh's eyes didn't blink. He just stared, like his brain had temporarily stepped outside the room to deal with what it was seeing. Then he leaned back, rubbed his eyes with both palms, and exhaled through his nose. "Jesus," he muttered. "She really?" "Yeah," I said. He closed the folder gently, then looked out the window for a while. The waitress came by. We both waved her off. I don't think either of us even glanced at the menu. "Finally," he said, "you okay?" I nodded once. "I will be." He swallowed hard. "I don't know what to say to her," he admitted. "I mean, she's my mom. But after seeing that—" "You don't owe either of us anything," I said. "You make your own choices. You don't have to pick sides. You don't have to fix it." His eyes dropped to the table. His voice was quiet. "I always thought you two were solid." I nodded. So did I. He looked like he wanted to ask more. How long it had been going on, why I didn't confront her sooner, if I ever considered forgiving her. But he didn't. Maybe because he already knew the answers. Or maybe because he was afraid of what they'd do to his image of her. We sat in silence for a few more minutes. Then, without another word, he reached across the table and pulled me into a hug. Tight. Honest. No ceremony. Like a son hugging a father he suddenly saw as more human than he'd ever realized. "I'm proud of you," he said into my shoulder. I didn't reply. My throat was tight. When we stepped outside, he walked with me to the truck. "I'm gonna need time," he said, looking down at the pavement. "You've got all the time you want," I said. He nodded, stepped back, and climbed into his car. I watched him pull away before getting in myself. No tears. No drama. Just the weight of honesty hanging between us, not breaking anything, just changing it. That night in my apartment, I sat by the window with the lights off and a cup of black coffee. No television. No music. Just the distant hum of cars moving through a city that didn't know or care what had happened to me. But I felt something shift. Not closure. Not peace. Something smaller. Lighter. I'd done the hardest part. I'd told my son the truth without bitterness, without poisoning him against her. I trusted him to hold that knowledge with care. Whatever he did next, that was his choice. And that was enough for now. Josh got married in spring. The kind of spring that feels earned, not muddy, not cold, just clean air and wildflowers. The wedding was simple. White chairs, an arch of driftwood, laughter without strain. Nothing overdone. I sat in the front row with Claire. She wore a soft green dress. I was in a navy suit. Josh had picked my boutonniere himself, eucalyptus and rosemary. I stood tall, lighter, whole. He looked over at me once before saying his vows. No words, just a look. I knew what it meant. I saw. I understand. I'm proud. After the ceremony, someone snapped a photo. Not posed. Not planned. I was standing beside Claire, one arm around her. She was laughing. My hand rested lightly on her back. Her head leaned toward mine. You could see the new ring on my finger, clean, silver, simple. Josh posted the photo the next day. No caption, just the image. That's how Laura saw it. Not in person, not through conversation. Through a screen. She was scrolling, maybe curious, maybe bored. But when she saw that photo, everything stopped. Not because I was gone, but because I was better. Standing there, smiling beside someone else, someone new. Not broken, not angry, not waiting. Just rebuilt. She didn't message me, didn't call, didn't comment. But word got back. Through Dave. She saw it, he said. Sat with it a long time. Then walked out of the room. That's all. No outburst. No drama. Just the silence that follows a realization that hits too deep for words. She thought I'd fade. Instead, I found light. Laura didn't reach out to Josh, either. Not right away. Maybe she sensed the shift. Maybe she remembered the last time she called, and how polite he was. Too polite. The kind of tone people use when they're holding something behind their teeth. He didn't hate her, but he saw her differently now. And you can't unsee that. Later, I asked him, just once. You ever think about talking to her? Clearing things up. He shrugged. I don't think she'd tell the truth. And I'm not sure I'd believe it if she did. Then, after a pause, he added, she's not cruel. Just, not who I thought she was. Neither was I once. But I changed. She didn't. Claire never asked about the photo. She didn't need to. That morning, I moved a little slower. Took longer finishing my coffee. Sat by the window, watching the light shift across the floor. She just came over. Placed her hand on my shoulder. Sat down beside me. That was it. And that's why she's different. She never tried to pull the words out of me. She let them come when they were ready, or not at all. That photo wasn't revenge. It wasn't a message. It was a record. Proof that healing happens. That leaving doesn't mean losing. That some things, when let go of, make room for something real. Laura once held my heart. But Claire? Claire held my peace. A year passed. Then another. Time didn't heal everything. It just gave it space. I kept working. The shop grew, slowly, steadily. More custom jobs came in. Shelving, decks, furniture. I liked working with reclaimed wood. Something about turning old, used boards into something solid again. It felt familiar. Claire was there, every step. She never tried to fix me. She just showed up. Quiet mornings. Books over coffee. Her dog, Jack, curled under my bench while I planned out cuts and angles. She never needed promises, just presence. And I gave it freely. Not because I owed it. Because it felt right. We bought a small house together on the edge of town. One story. Wraparound porch. White shutters that creaked when the wind blew. It wasn't grand, but it had warmth. You could feel it in the floorboards, in the way light hit the kitchen table around 3 p.m., in the way Jack ran circles in the yard like he was still a puppy. Josh came by often. Brought his wife. He started calling Claire by her first name, and then, without realizing it, just Mom Claire. We never asked for it. Never corrected him. It just became. And that was enough. I never heard from Laura again. She never wrote. Never called. Never tried to explain. Maybe she knew there was nothing left to salvage. Maybe pride kept her quiet. Maybe guilt. Or maybe, finally, she understood that silence was the only honest thing she had left to offer. And I took it. Gladly. I don't think about the motel anymore. Or the man. Or the lie about the gym. I remember the day I saw her ring in the car. I remember the hollow ache it left. But the pain, it's distant now. Like a scar that tightens in the cold but never really hurts. That part of my life. It's not an open wound anymore. It's just something that was. Claire and I stood in front of the mirror one night, brushing our teeth side by side. I looked over at her, hair tied back, face washed, one of my flannel shirts hanging off her shoulder. You ever think about the past? I asked. She nodded. Didn't stop brushing. Does it ever make you doubt the present? She looked at me then, foam still on her lips, and smiled. No, she said. It makes me appreciate it more. Years later, Josh had a child. A little girl with wide eyes and her mother's laugh. They named her Ellie. Claire cried when she held her for the first time. I didn't. Not because I wasn't moved, but because I'd already cried all the tears I had. This moment wasn't about release. It was about arrival. Holding that baby, I didn't feel like a man who'd been betrayed. I felt like a man who had endured. And won. There's a photo on our fireplace now. Josh's wedding. Me and Claire, standing in the field. Her hand in mine. My face turned toward her mid-laugh. Light all around. People still tell me it's the kind of photo that looks staged. But it wasn't. It was real. Because we were. They say betrayal defines a man. I don't believe that. I think what defines you is what you do with it. You can stay. You can scream. You can fight for something already gone. Or you can walk. Quietly. Cleanly. Without blood on your hands. You can build something new. Not because you want revenge, but because you remember what it feels like to breathe fully. I didn't disappear because I was broken. I disappeared because I was finally whole. And when she saw that picture, the one from Josh's wedding, she saw the truth. I didn't leave her. I left the version of myself that was willing to settle for less. The end.